Peter, I want to jump to the growth steps for Bitcoin. We've seen the little bit of a rough ride over the past 60 days in terms of the price coming down. It's the volatility that is there, but at the same time, it's still up. When you look at this time last year, the scenario of being able to get Bitcoin. First of all, do you think we have entered the bear market, or do you feel like we still have a little bit of a bull run?
No, I don't think we've entered the bear market, but I also don't care if we have. Look, it's all well and good when the price goes up and we jump around and think, yeah, I've made some gains. But the reality of it is, once you've done 4 years, it doesn't really matter. Once you've done 4 years of Bitcoin, you get used to the volatility. Now, I don't know what the price is right now. I haven't actually looked today, and I don't really care. I care more about what's going on with the network, what the network offers for people. And don't get me wrong, if Bitcoin hits $100,000, I'm going to be like, yay. That's only because it gives me more opportunity and my family more opportunity.
Sure.
But generally speaking, price is one of the least interesting things about Bitcoin.
As opposed to, these big moves, which really have an influence on where the price is going anyway. And that's institutional money. It's countries like El Salvador. We've seen, obviously, the shift within mining. What are your thoughts on some of these big areas when you look at, kind of these big dominoes that could fall? Any one of those that you feel is going to have the most impact in terms of price? Do you think it's going to be institution, the resurgence of mining, or countries moving in?
I mean, I don't think mining affects price too much. I think institution buying affects price. I think country adoption will affect price. I think retail buying will affect price. But I've personally got to the point where it's not an important. The only reason price is important is because it draws new people in, it draws interest in, and the value of the network grows and becomes harder to destroy. And if the price goes up, you have more miners coming on board, and you have more security. But outside of that, it's not the most important thing. It's one of the least important things. The most important thing is teaching people how to use Bitcoin, the number of people who are learning about Bitcoin, the number of people who are using Bitcoin, the decentralization of the network, the adoption of the spread of miners around the world globally into these new territories, the onboarding of new developers to help support the network. Like, all these things are the most important, and these are happening. More and more people are creating Bitcoin wallets. More and more people are trying to fund open source development. Miners are spreading out to these locations and looking into Paraguay, looking into El Salvador. That's the most interesting thing, because for Bitcoin to continue to succeed, it has to be a robust and secure network. And the way it achieves that is being maximally decentralized. So that, to me, is the most interesting thing. Price, but yeah.
Well, I think for me, I look at price, like to the point you made, is it does draw in a lot of people for first time, and that's really kind of the magic of Bitcoin and this whole system, is once you get someone into cryptocurrency, which I've done with a lot of my friends, and the light bulbs come on, everything starts to work, everything starts to click, and usually the thing that drew them in was either a price drop or a price lift, either one way or the other. So to me, it is kind of one of the most important things in being able to get adoption, because that's a key element. So let's talk about that, because a lot of people say this is still super early. I tend to agree. Yeah, I tend to agree with that. When you look around the world, you've been all over the place, you've talked to all these experts and people around the world, how far do you think we will see adoption before we see this in mainstream? Because really, mainstream media still today does not really understand it, nor do they report on it, much like what we do here on our own show. Where do you think that's going to go in the next 5 years?
Let me ask you a question. How many people these days, when you mention the word Bitcoin, have never heard of it?
A handful. Yeah, a handful. But not as many as it was a year ago. A year ago, this last year seems to have exploded at least the awareness, I should say.
I literally can't remember the last time I mentioned Bitcoin to somebody and they went, "What's that?"
What's that?
And I'm like, I've never heard of that. It doesn't happen, because people always ask, what do you do for a job?
Yeah.
So I could be in an Uber or a bar or whatever, and I was like, oh, I've got a Bitcoin podcast. And they're like, Bitcoin. We have mainstream awareness now. Like, it exists. It's out there. People have heard of it. The biggest problem now is converting those who have heard of it to understand it. Getting them away from thinking it's some weird, like, magic internet money, that it's something that's boiling polar bears, that it's something used by terrorists and money launderers and drug dealers.
Right.
Get them away from the FUD. Now that's quite difficult because unfortunately the mainstream media has really become just a place to peddle propaganda, corporate propaganda these days. Sadly, we're lacking brave, courageous, honest journalists these days. Those who work for the New York Times, the Guardian, whoever, they just publish bullshit all the time. And quite frankly, this kind of weak journalism is tiring. And this is why you're seeing the growth of podcasters and people using Substack.
Yep.
The Matthew Taibbi's, the Joe Rogans, because these people are authentic and give you the truth. So sadly, Bitcoin adoption, the biggest hurdle to it is, I think, is the mainstream media publishing absolute crap regarding Bitcoin. So we have awareness. If you want adoption, it's got to be about education, and it's good education, so people understand exactly what it is, why it matters, how they use it, how they buy it, how they keep it secure. That's the hurdle.
All right, last subject, and that is influencers. Yes. Of course, Elon is kind of the poster child of where cryptocurrency is looked at today, for the modern world. Your thoughts on how that has moved? Because we've also seen very positive influencers, whether it's Paris Hilton, we've seen Ashton Kutcher invest in this market, a lot of movement from Hollywood, but also you have guys like Elon who have kind of made what I think are very unusual moves for a guy who's supposed to be so smart on this. Just these in and outs that, and again, I feel like we're just getting the ultimate troll from him. What are your thoughts on that one?
Well, I'm trying not to talk about him too much because I've been trolling him a bit online. So Elon Musk, to me, it's just what he's been doing is a shame and it's disappointing. And it's a shame and it's disappointing for me because I know how Bitcoin can change people's lives because I've been around the world and seen it. I've seen how people have been able to use it in a country that has capital controls. I've seen how people have been use it to raise up their wealth. I've seen how people can use it to send money to their friends and family and save on remittance. And you know what? There's some really good people who've been working on this for over a decade.
Right.
Day in, day out, coding the system, defending the system, promoting Bitcoin. And you know what? He comes in with his 58 million followers. And yeah, I know he's a troll, likes to have a bit of fun, but I don't think he really understands. He's just making the work of these people more difficult. I've been out to El Salvador 4 times, and I'm seeing the positive impact he's having for people there, and it's brilliant. And what he's doing he's doing 2 things. He's been unfairly critical of Bitcoin on specific issues while at the same time promoting Doge, which, let's be honest, is an absolute shitcoin. It cannot do the things that Bitcoin is doing. And by doing this, he's just making everyone's work harder. And he could be doing the opposite. He could be supporting this. Or he could just shut up. Honestly, I don't mind either. And I get told I'm Saudi and, blah, blah, blah. He's just making people's work harder, and it doesn't have to be this way. Anyone will go and talk to him. He could put his hands up, and anyone in Bitcoin will go and talk to him and explain to him the block size wars, explain to him the Civil War,
right,
what decisions were made, why, what we learned from that. They sit down and explain it to him. But no, he just wants to get on Twitter and post stupid shit, which is just making everyone's work harder. And that's a shame. And because I'll tell you why it's a shame, because if there was another person with 58 million followers pumping out stuff that made his job of creating electric cars or solar energy or boring tunnels to get people into space, if that person kept trolling him, I don't think he would like it. Yeah, he's trolling the people who are trying to make the world a better place. And again, other people listening might be like, oh, that sounds hyperbolic. No, Bitcoin genuinely is a tool for human freedom. It's a tool that gives people financial freedom, and he's just making their work harder. And that for me is just really disappointing that someone wouldn't have the self-awareness to realize they're doing that.
Okay, so, we cover EVs on this channel a lot. We go into innovative tech, autonomy, robotics, and I look at Elon and I see all the good that he's doing for the world because, when you look at just the environment and where climate is going and his potential impact on it, and also when you go out into what he's doing on space, the things he's doing for the human species, this is what really confuses me around understanding blockchain technology, especially with someone who's basically a genius, for him to not to be able to really understand and grasp what the potential is for what Bitcoin has and means to the
No,
world.
look. In his defense on that point, Bitcoin is complicated, right? It's hard. It takes a lot of work. There's people who've been in Bitcoin for a long time who believe that Bitcoin should have bigger blocks. They went through the scaling debate and they came out on the bigger block size. That's still doubling down, tripling down on that, who will argue it to the hilt. Okay, they're wrong because they don't understand how financial networks are built. And by the way, this isn't me being smart. I'm just going to repeat what other people say in terms of you need a settlement layer and you need a transactional layer. But these people, it doesn't surprise me that somebody just dipping in and out may come to different conclusions that you've come to. If you spent 4 years looking at this, there was a period when I was watching the scaling debate. I was like, yeah, bigger blocks make sense. Some hardcore Bitcoiners have said that, but now we're way past that. The argument is dead. There is no argument for bigger blocks. We've had every single fork fail, and we've had it fail for a reason, is that for this network to survive, it has to be maximally decentralized. There's no sacrifice on that. No sacrifice for a company, for speed, for lower costs. This system has to be maximally decentralized so it can stay out of the reach of government and support the idea of censorship resistance. Okay, consensus has to be hard to change. Okay, if you've done the work, you understand this and you become battle hardened for it. So it doesn't surprise me that someone would come along and hear about bigger blocks and think, oh, that makes sense. At the same time, when you're tweeting 58 million people, it's like, right, should I be learning in public? Because it's something I've done, by the way, but if I'm tweeting to 58 million people, should I be learning in public? If I tell people to buy Doge and they get that wrong and they get wrecked, I kind of hold a small amount of responsibility. Sure, everyone's responsible for their own decisions, but let's be very clear. There are a lot of people who have bought Doge based on what Elon Musk has said. So I just think it's a shame. He wouldn't do this with a space rocket. He wouldn't do this with an electric car. But he's doing this with the financial network that people have spent over a decade working on, that has brought freedom to the world, that has improved people's lives. So yeah, I understand how he maybe is learning in public. I just think his process is disappointing. Or arrange a meeting, invite Adam Back and Michael Goldstein and Pierre Rochard and Marty Bent and Matt O'Dell and Jameson Lopp and get 10 of the people in the room and go through this, learn it and understand that how this network works, understand where it's come from, where it's going. It's an hour of your time.
Exactly, yeah. Which could potentially just set him on a new course too, because that, in essence, when you look at what his ability to do in terms of renewable energy, that could be a huge thing. We had Hut 8 on our show not too long ago, and they talked about, they had a chance to sit down with Elon and Michael and Saylor and kind of talk about this mining council and how that potentially could help here in North America in terms of kind of picking up the hash rate scenario. So I think there's some definite opportunities there with a guy like Elon, just because of his reach, because of his impact and influence, and also because of his knowledge and technology access, which could end up being a good thing for everything we're doing in this space, for sure.
Yeah, well, we will see. We will see. I kind of wanted to stop talking about him because, whatever. There's far more interesting people to talk about.
Absolutely. All right. Well, let's last topic there, and our last question here, and that is, when you look at some of the people around that you've had a chance to talk to, and really understand and see the differences between the really good ones versus the really great ones, is there anybody we should be talking to or watching very closely? Anybody that you say, this is really surprising me?
That's a really good question. I mean, my boy Matt O'Dell, he keeps me honest. So I would say him. He tries to keep me honest, and I do my best to stay honest through him. He is a little guy and sits on my shoulder, and when I'm fucking up, I'm aware he's there. I like Matt O'Dell.
All right. He's the guy. All right. Well, there you guys. You heard it. Peter McCormack, it's been great having you on the show today. Thank you so much for stopping in.
All right. Take care. Ciao.
All right. Excellent. All you guys listening in over on the podcast, thanks for listening in. Make sure and give us some stars right there. You, of course, can reach out to us if you have an idea for a show, which is just producer@revernetworks.com. And of course, if you're here on YouTube, make sure and subscribe and share this message. This is one of the biggest things, like Peter was just mentioning. help people understand where this movement is going and what Bitcoin can and will be doing for our monetary system in the future. So that's the best way. Share it. And of course, if you want to reach up to me, just hit me up on Twitter, @Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.